Hey, welcome back to the Better Not Bitter podcast. I am your host, Maya Warren, and I'm so glad to have you with me today. Today, we have a special guest, my fellow brother in Christ, TJ Wall. But before we introduce him, we're going to drop this beloved intro. All right, guys. So today I have with me the one and only TJ Wall. He is a friend of mine, brother in Christ, and I am excited to be able to learn more about him, hear his story, and for you all to hear about him as well. Welcome, TJ.
What's up? What's up?
Man, I'm so glad that you're here with me today. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Been enjoying life right now. Just getting ready for the next semester. So, and just
Hey.
been, getting prepared.
All right. For those of y'all who don't know TJ, I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, tell us what he does, what he likes, all those wonderful things.
All right. So, like she said, my name is TJ Wall. I'm from Texas, right on the border of Texas and Arkansas. I'm currently in college, about to go into my last semester at Texas A&M Texarkana. I'm majoring in political science with a focus in criminal justice. Planning on using that to go to law school. I guess my hobbies are watching sports. That's one of my biggest hobbies. I like to write songs just as a hobby, nothing crazy or for profit or anything, but just, as a hobby. And, I just like hanging out with friends. So that's what it is.
That's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing all those things. We were actually talking about sports
Yeah.
professionally and collegiately prior to the podcast got started. So I am curious to know, what was life for you, not like you. What was life like for you at an early age to now?
Let's see. I would say I never really noticed it being much different. Like, I guess when I was a younger kid, I did kind of notice little things like, like if we had I don't remember a few times at school we had bounce house parties, and I'd be like, oh, I want to go on the bounce house, but I couldn't because my disability. But mostly though, I've had it's not been much different from normal childhood. My parents have
Yeah.
always kind of just encouraged me to, not let that hinder me from getting involved and making friends and stuff like that. So
That's dope. If you could talk about your disability in terms of what it is, how it came about, and just some of the challenges and different ways you've learned to navigate it.
right. So my disability is called Spinal Muscular Atrophy. It's SMA for short. I have type 2, but I'm a stronger type 2, so it's close to type 3 if you want to look it up and do some research on that. But basically, what it is there's I guess some kind of disconnect between the nerves firing and to my muscles and giving the muscles a signal so they don't produce a certain protein that needs to be produced to build muscle. So I can't really build muscle, and it atrophies over time. But thankfully, I'm taking some medicine right now that's kind of recently came out that's supposed to prevent it from atrophying. So that's been a blessing for sure, and it's definitely helped. Some challenges you say that I go through. Well, a lot of it is just like daily things that people would normally think of. Like, first of all, getting up and getting ready. That's one of the biggest ones. I gotta have somebody help with pretty much everything I do. So getting up, getting dressed, getting ready, brushing teeth, brushing hair. On top of them doing that for themselves, so we gotta wake up earlier. Traveling place to place. I got a vehicle that I can get in, thankfully, so that helps. But we sometimes, we got to schedule things, be there early just to make sure in case something happens, then, we're there on time. I guess as for struggles, I guess there's a lot of things you could probably mention, but I think probably the biggest struggle has just been I would say probably things like accessibility and just kind of finding out how the world is not really made for someone like me necessarily. Not saying that it's not helpful in a lot of ways, especially where I'm at right now, but it's just not really tailored to people like me. So just kind of navigating that and figuring out where I need to figure out solutions and adaptations and things like that. So that's the biggest struggles.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And when it comes to different disabilities and the individuals who have them, it's always interesting to hear their upbringing and things like some of the challenges that you notice and are aware of. Just because we all kind of notice different things, even if someone has your same disability, they're probably going to notice different things as well. And accessibility is something that is so key in terms of being able to navigate life with a disability. And I've noticed that there are a lot of things, even within the church, that don't lend themselves to accessibility. There are different buildings, and regardless of if it's a physical or invisible disability, a lot of the little things can make the biggest difference,
Right.
So my next question is, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way that help you navigate disability? So for example, people look at me, and when I tell them I'm visually impaired, they're like, oh, well, she can't do XYZ. What are some things that you're able to do and you do them like nobody else can do them?
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the biggest things is resilience. You're gonna have a lot of setbacks, and at times it's really tough. If you ever, I know in those social situations sometimes it can seem difficult because especially when you're meeting new people. Like I've got a great group of friends, but when you're meeting new people, it's definitely kind of nerve wracking because it's like, what do they think of me? What do they assume of me? And I've got to disprove their assumptions and should prove myself basically, just from the get go, just because they already have their own assumptions. So, but your question is what was your question? I'm sorry, I went off on that.
I think I asked that what are some things that you are able to do? So a lot of times when people hear that an individual has a disability, they tend to focus on the things that they're not able to do rather than the things that they are able to do.
Right.
If someone say like, you didn't know me from a can of paint and I assumed that you couldn't do anything, what would you tell me to correct me? Like, no, I can do XYZ. What is XYZ for you?
Well, first, I think what I like to use for my first impression is just my communication skills. I feel like are pretty, decently strong. I like to pride myself on my. I guess I've always been pretty successful in school, and I've have strong interest in certain topics. So I'm pretty knowledgeable in a few areas that if they know anything about those areas, I can show them, hey, like I know a lot about this, and then that's not as a prideful thing. It's just show you like, hey, I'm not just not able to do anything,
Yeah.
And then I guess also, like I said, my music, I like to share that with people sometimes. So those are some of the key things. Just communication.
Let me tell y'all.
Yeah.
Let me tell y'all, this man over here, he may seem like, I'm just me. This is who I am. But this man is like, you ever heard the phrase that God packed someone good or that he placed a lot of gifts in them? You are one of those people. Like you said, you have the ability to not only communicate well, and also when it comes to things like conflict, you're really good at breaking down both sides.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate
With
that.
nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no problem, bro. I noticed that on your social media and when we've talked, with divinity and all those things.
Hmm.
I've
Yeah.
also, y'all don't know this man raps. He rapidy raps, and he has a nice flow, a nice cadence, and so just being able to form connections with people who have a disability will broaden your perspective. I think
Hmm.
I was talking with Pastor Roy about this, like, just because someone does not have the presentation of what society or this world or even sometimes the church deems as normal,
Hmm.
does not mean that God has not equipped them with the ability to be effective in what
Right.
he's equipped them with. And for you, the main thing is communication. And talk about how communication has helped you in terms of just advocating for yourself and kind of wearing people down who were kind of cautious about disability in general.
Right. Well, first of all, I think the biggest thing to have, or the thing that helps break the ice the most, is sense of humor. Sometimes it's just funny to make fun of yourself, make fun of the things that people are kind of worried about or not sure about. So then it kind of breaks the ice. That's can't tell you how many times I've broken the ice with people just because I made some kind of joke about myself. And normally it's funny. It's funny. The first time I normally do it, they're like, should I laugh at that? And I'm like, bro, yeah, like it was a joke. Yeah, laugh at it. I wasn't like just being serious or nothing. So sense of humor is definitely a big part of that communication. And as for advocating for myself, you know, you have to be able to, like, the thing is, like, people are coming from a whole another, perspective where they don't really know um what you're going through. It's like, like they haven't lived that lifestyle. So in order for them to fully understand what you're going through and the kind of things you need help with, you kind of learn over time how to uh, thoroughly communicate what you can and cannot do, and show them the little things that might impact you, and just get them on that right thought process. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I hear you. And I think that's like, I like how you put it, because sometimes, at least in my experience, I've noticed that sometimes people don't know, like, they want to know, but they
Hmm.
don't know how to ask questions. So I end
Right.
up being the one bringing it up a lot of times.
Right.
And by me bringing it up, it like relaxes them. But I want to be able to equip people with the tools to like stop being afraid
Hmm.
of asking questions and just
Right.
learning how to ask the right questions respectfully, because there is a
Right.
difference where
Yeah.
where nobody knows everything, like just like
Mhm.
you as well as everyone in divinity. I educated on my disabilities. I had to be educated on your disability as well as
Mhm.
the experiences of the people who have been on my podcast so far. And I
Right.
recognize that ignorant means lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
I have a lack of knowledge in certain areas. And that's why I bring in people to kind of help me build that base of understanding so that I can appreciate who God has placed in my life and the people on this earth that have disabilities and whatnot.
Right.
So with all that being said, we talk about communication. We talked about things like kind of wearing people down and breaking the ice. With that being said, the title of this video and the thumbnail is Engaging People with Disabilities.
Right.
So, engagement by nature of the word just means to communicate, be
Mhm.
in proximity with, in some places do life with.
Right.
And so, what are some things that you would recommend to help people who are more able-bodied engage with people with disabilities in a meaningful way?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess don't come in with any assumptions. First and foremost, come in with a blank slate. Um, uh, Casper over there. Yeah. But yeah, just don't come in with any assumptions. Uh, come in with a blank slate. And first, I know it probably is hard for people who don't have that experience with disabled folks, but just like you do with a normal person, interact with them like that. Hey, what's up? What's your name? Get to know the basic stuff about them first before you start diving into all the disability stuff. But then once you form that relationship at the basic level, then I would say when you start to get to that place where you're more comfortable to ask those questions, just say, people will always be like, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And I don't want it to seem rude. I'm like, "Yeah, for sure, go at it." Like, I don't really care as much. I'm mostly open to answering whatever questions, but um, everybody's different in that. So be gentle in that and say, "Hey, I have questions about you and your disability. Can we talk about it?" And they'll say yes or they'll say no. Don't push them, but they'll get to that comfort level eventually when you just form that relationship. I think. Um, and then from there, I would say, uh, I, at least for me, this is just me personally. I like it better when it's more of a one-on-one conversation. I've had people ask me questions where we were kind of in a group setting, and it's really uncomfortable, especially if it's like mixed company. It's like I don't want to go into depth about all that stuff right now. It's just like if you want to talk to me one-on-one later, that's cool. We can talk one-on-one. But it's more personal one-on-one, and you can communicate it better one-on-one. So I would say definitely go for more one-on-one rather than a group setting, asking questions out the blue. Um, but yeah, I mean that's the main things I would say probably.
I agree. Like, especially, Casper and Jocelyn, and as well as
Yeah.
like something I preach probably to a fault is the concept of relational equity.
Hmm.
Um, it's much easier for an individual with a disability to be vulnerable and self-disclose
Hmm.
when you have that relationship
Right.
based on who they are as a person before just jumping in,
Hmm.
like bah, 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 bah. And
Right.
I'm like you, I hate being ambushed.
Yeah.
Like if you wanna, like I've had um teachers, oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
them to pieces, but I've had teachers shout across the room something about my disability,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like,
Like really?
ma'am,
Yeah.
sir, chill. And so
Yeah.
I've literally had to like go to the classroom, like when nobody else was there, like, hey,
Right.
um, I love you to pieces, as
Right.
an educator, but I feel this way when you ambush me like that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I, not that I'm ashamed of my disabilities and things like that, but it's not it's not for everybody to know, because
Right.
not everybody is mature, especially like in a school setting. There
Right.
are
Right.
still rude people, there are still mean people, there are still bullies. So you have to be
Hmm.
aware of that thing. And I recognize educators sometimes don't realize that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like it really does have ambush vibes when they do it.
Hmm. So on that note, I would say, I have had those times where teachers would just say something across the room, like, it could have been something simple, but like, you need help doing this, and I'm like, I want to say yes because I do, but then at the same time, I'm
Hmm.
like, no, I'm good. Like and
Yeah.
I think the main thing I would say. Oh, and also back on that point, sometimes I've also had teachers that from the jump like knew like, hey, if you ever need anything, come to me.
Hmm.
Let me know. And they very discreet when they helping me. And
I
that
love those teachers.
I know to me it's like that just makes me feel so comfortable. And it's like,
Hmm.
man, I'm like I wish everybody was like that. But I think the whole thing, like what you were saying, is being on that relational level. I think the reason, like you said, we're not ashamed of our disability necessarily, but it's more of I kind of you want people to see you for who you are first, but you want to you want them to see who you are first, but you don't want them to first start with your disability because then at that point your identity in their eyes is going to be rooted in your disability.
Thank you. You were preaching, sir. See, you preaching. Like, so I'm working on like doing a series of videos on relational equity in terms of
Mm-hmm.
people with the disabilities, and it's gonna tackle like regular relationships and relationships in the church because some of y'all be mad, weird, and ignorant, even in the house of God. I love you to pieces, but you do.
Right.
And like it's just very interesting because disability seems to be one of those things where we lose our cool. Like people on social media can be like, I'm going to fight for these rights. I'm going to fight for these rights. I'm going to say
Mm-hmm.
this. I'm going to be respectful and all that. And then somebody walks in with whatever disability and they lose all their filters. They lose how to talk and communicate. And it's just
Yeah.
like, it's not like it impacts us, but it shouldn't be something where you lose sight of our humanity in the process
Right.
of getting to know us.
Right. Right. Exactly. I think, I agree fully with that. That's why I say that's the only reason I'm ever really anxious in those situations is, like I said, if I'm around people I know, I don't even care. Like I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if they see, oh, I need help with this. Like they already know because they know who I am, you know. But it's when I'm in those situations with new people who I haven't met,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want them to know me for, oh, that's the kid that needs help with a lot of things, or we got to cater to him. You know, I want them to know me for who I am, and then they can respect my accommodations, I guess you say, a lot more because they're like, oh, he's just a normal person who just needs help with this, like that's
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah. So prior to the podcast, we talked about, you being in college and what's that been like for you. I'm curious to know, did you notice any differences between your high school experience with your disability and your college experience with your disability?
uh, so yes, in a way, I'll say I'll go more into that in just a second. But first, the differences so far. Um, in high school, I was, uh, face to face full time. And that was, like my senior year is when COVID hit. So ever since then, I've been online. So my disability accommodations have been slightly different. But I can say I've definitely had to advocate more for myself. Back in high school, we already had a system set up, and I had a 504 plan, which is just a disability accommodations plan, pretty much. Um, and my mom was pretty involved with that too. So if she saw that I was having a problem, she'd hit up the school ASAP and be like, "Hey, get this fixed." And they'd be like, "All right, cool." And they were very helpful in that. So it was very organized back then in high school. And now that I'm at college, they do have the offices, but it's all up to me to set that stuff up. Like I've got to email the disability office and say, "Hey, I need to have a meeting." So we had a meeting, and I told them what my accommodations were, and then I've got to email them every semester, especially if I'm having a face to face class, and get my accommodations document and send it to all of my professors and make sure that they get it so they know what I need. And then, like I said, I'm having my first face to face class this fall, so for college. So I'm gonna have to meet with that professor sometime and figure out, hey, this is what I need. Is there any problems? So it's definitely more all on me rather than having a system where you don't have to worry about it as much. You know what I mean? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. It's definitely like a whole different ball game. And one of the things that really helped me was kind of having to push myself
Mm,
out of that little box.
yeah.
Because while I've been self advocating pretty much all my life, new environment, you kind of second guess yourself. You're like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want them, and
Right.
I don't know about you, but I'm kind of learning not to manage people's perceptions of me before they even get to know me.
Right. Yeah. It's a hard thing to do. I ain't gonna lie, but I've been trying to do that as well. I've been trying to, first be secure in who I am and know who I got around me, because that definitely helps a lot. But then, like, most of the time, it don't matter what most people think of you because you ain't around them most of the time. Like, they can think what they want. They can be ignorant if they want, If they want to ask questions, that's cool. But most of the time, it's just like, if they ain't important in my life right now, then I don't care what they think of me. Let them think what they want. Go on about their day,
Mm-hmm. I definitely hear you. Um, so I know that you are a man of faith in Christ, and one of the things that you and I have talked about numerous times is how like we literally need the grace of God just to
Mm,
do whatever we're able to do throughout the day. And I know I talk about that at length, but I'm just curious to know how your faith plays into your mental health with your disability.
yeah. Um, having that faith in Christ, and it's it gives you more of it gives you a purpose. Like, people without Christ, they don't have a purpose in their suffering, right? But with Christ, we have a purpose. And so it's like, God, like, there was times I question, why you got me here like this, right? Why is it me? Like, out of all the people in the world, right? It had to be me. Like, I can't win the lottery, but I won this lottery, right? You know what I'm saying? I'd be asking God, like, why is it like this?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have these struggles? But, uh, growing in your faith helps you realize that, first of all, God's had a purpose for everybody, even though I'm not normal like everybody, but He's got a purpose for me, and He's using me for a certain tool, right? Like, He's used me as a tool for a certain purpose, and so it's like, okay, that gives you a little bit more perspective through that suffering, and just knowing also, that I have that eternal life it gives me more to live for, because it's you know your purpose is to spread the gospel, and really and truthfully, when you have a disability, it almost gives you more of a platform to speak on,
Mm,
because everybody else is just living normal life, and then, everybody has their struggles, but when they see
mm,
something different and they see, like, wow, they're living life to the fullest, and I'm over here, sulking in my sadness. It's like, what do they got that I don't, and it's more
mm-hmm.
of a platform to speak. So that's just kind of what it's been from my experience.
Yeah, those are cool things. I like that you said um, we have a purpose
Hmm.
as believers compared to those who don't have faith in Christ. And
Right.
could you talk about how, um, or if you've experienced any moments where you were tempted to like compare yourself to someone else, like in any case?
Yeah, definitely so. It's always like that. Well, first of all, kind of going back to the whole social thing, like, having to prove yourself from the jump, that's one thing that it's always like, I feel like, well, because people might not see me in this way, I need to be productive and show my progress and, like, do a lot of stuff to show, hey, they're legit. You know what I mean? Like, for instance,
Oof.
I tried really hard in high school. I got good grades. I wasn't a valedictorian. I wasn't trying for all that. That's too much work. But um, I did try really hard, and I graduated high school with my associate's degree. And now, a year and a half later, I'm about to have my bachelor's. So I'm just, constantly on a grind.
Pause,
Um,
pause, pause, pause. We're not just gonna skate past the fact that this man got his associate's degree in high school.
yeah, I mean, I I'm glad for the opportunity to be able to do that, because it definitely helped out a lot and saved some time. So I, I, it's good, and it's something that I wanted to do, but I always feel
Hmm.
more motivated because I feel like, and sometimes in some cases I have to prove myself. So I gotta show that progress. I gotta show, hey, I'm not just sitting around, not doing nothing, and just, so I guess that's sometimes in the way I compare myself, is trying to prove myself. And then I guess one of my struggles is, when it comes to relationships and stuff, I kind of compare myself to everybody else. Like, what do I
Mm.
have to offer? What do I have? Something that's not a great thought to have, but it's just honestly something I struggle with a lot. And it's like, that's kind of what that is. But yeah, definitely comparison is bad. It's toxic. So
Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
I say that, one, just, it takes vulnerability to share that anyway. But two, like, it's good to know I'm not the only one who struggles in terms of like, okay, I do not to accommodate for what I can't do. And like, I'm now in a position with chronic migraine disorder and my connective tissue disorder where I can't just do the most. And that's really humbling. Like, I remember in high school, I was in like 8 different things. I was in jazz band, I played basketball, I was in poetry club, I did HOSA, I was doing a lot. Human relations, I was doing a lot, and graduated with a 4.2, all of that. And then I get to college, and then chronic illness starts to rear its head. And it really humbled me because it was kind of like, okay, you need to sit down and learn how to take care of yourself. You need to sit down, and you got to stop looking at Susie Q over here who did XYZ, and you're not able to run in that lane. And then it wasn't until like, I want to say maybe 2 years ago, God really started working on my heart in the area of like comparison in that fashion, because my journey and my race is not someone else's race. Therefore, the outcome of my race and how it comes into fruition is not going to look like somebody else's. And if that is the case, then why am I comparing myself? Because in order to have what I'm comparing myself to, I have to go through the highs, the lows, the struggles, whatever that person went through to get what they got. In verbatim, I gotta go through that to get what they got. And then I thought about it like that. I'm like, Lord, I done been through enough. I don't want somebody else's journey on top of mine. So I will gladly do the work to stop comparing myself.
Right. I feel that. Yeah.
It really is one of those interesting things. Pastor Roy, he and I did a video yesterday, and he said something that I hadn't really thought about. He was like, it's easy for people to have faith when they feel good all the time. Or if they don't have a disability or some sort of obstacle. But it takes like a different level, magnitude of faith to depend on God, because you're so limited. Like, could you talk about some of the areas where you really had to lean in dependence on God?
Yeah, just I guess, first of all, one of the bigger things that I worry about is like what my future is gonna look like, and that hadn't came yet, and it ain't gonna be here for. I mean, it ain't gonna be here for a little bit, like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, like I'm gonna have to sit here and wait and watch it unfold as it unfolds, and that's something that's kind of hard to do because I want to have a plan, I want to know how things are gonna go. I want to be like, okay, in this amount of time I'll be doing this, right, and what that's gonna look like. And it just don't work like that. You got to kind of just walk out in faith, right? But I'm sorry, I'm good on this tangent, and I don't remember what your question was. You there? Probably some technical difficulties, I guess. I can't hear you if you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now. That's what's up.
All right, cool. I was asking, what are some areas in your life or examples where you really had to learn to depend on God? And I'll give you an example. Like for me, I really had to learn to trust God that the things that he's called me to do, he's going to provide for, whether it's transportation, because I can't drive, or the energy and the strength to get there and do the thing. What are some examples for you?
So yeah, like I said, my future, worrying about my future and how that's going to look like. And like you said, he's going to provide what he called you to do. But it's just hard to really have faith in that sometimes, especially when you don't see it working out and you've had past experience where, oh, that didn't work out, so I don't know how it's going to work out then, and so it's really hard to do sometimes. And then also just, in my identity, when we were talking about comparison earlier, just in your own identity, first of all, as a Christian, but as a person too, um, having to battle that comparison and taking solace in knowing the one who created you and then what he created you for, and that he made you unique. The Bible says that you're beautifully and wonderfully made, right? And so, knowing that, and it's like, trying to rely on him to help me find my purpose and help me find, that identity in him rather than in comparison.
That is so good. You've been preaching today. You sure you didn't prepare for this?
No.
You sure?
That's the spirit, I guess.
Yes. Well, it sure
Yeah,
is.
it is.
I'm gonna read a verse really quickly because something you said kind of like sparked something. So I'm gonna read it.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think I'm gonna read the entire passage, like this section. So it's 1 Peter chapter 3, and I'm gonna start at verse 8. And it says, "Finally, all of you, be like-minded, sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble, not paying back evil for evil, insult for insult, but on the contrary, giving a blessing, since you were called for this, so that you may inherit a blessing. For the one who wants to love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil. Let us keep his lips from deceit, and let him turn away from evil and do what is good. Let him seek peace and pursue it, because the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous and his ears are open to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do what is evil." Here comes the part. "Who then will harm you if you devoted to what is good? But then if you should suffer for righteousness, you are blessed. Do not fear them or be intimidated. But in your hearts, regard Christ, the Lord, as holy, ready at any time to give a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you." That last part.
Yeah.
First of all, I read the passage because we read in context. Okay, on this channel, we read in context.
Right.
Okay. But that last part is so integral in what I hear you saying, like being a reason for giving a reason for the hope that you have, being able to display and represent what it is to be a Christian in spite of disability and the things that you're not able to do, and just glorify him and be able to say, hey, somebody approaches you, man, you have a really good attitude and a good sense of humor. Why is that? You know what I'm saying? Being able to say, Jesus did this for me. He is my lifeline. This is why I can have joy. And so, like, I heard that, like, echoing as you were talking, because even though we go through things like comparison, I fully believe that on the other side of that is being able to help people who are going through that same thing.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So with that being said, I am curious to know, like, when I invited you on this particular episode is because, one, I was like, man, I got to talk to my man TJ about some things, because we talk offline, but I wanted to know here. And one of the things I'm curious to know is, do you have any, how can I say it, tips or tricks or ways that you combat moments where it gets really hard?
Yeah. I guess the biggest thing for me is, one, surrounding myself with my friends, like my family, my friends, that support group. Because, being able to kick it with them and laugh and joke, takes off a lot of the pressure of whatever you're going through at the time. And then another thing is just, having that honest time with God where you just sit there alone and you might be crying, you might be really hurting at the time, but just having that really heartfelt, deep conversation, like, I don't understand this, like being completely honest with them, like, I don't understand this, I don't know why it's got to be like this, and I know what the, I'm sorry, I know what the truth is,
You're good.
but like, I know for me, oftentimes, like, I'm going through things. My mind says, you know what the truth is. You know why you're going through this, but sometimes it don't leave me room to feel my emotions, and so like that's one thing that's big, that I've been kind of learning recently. I think actually because of a conversation I had with Jocelyn, if she's still watching, but it's just learning to feel your emotions because they're real, and God made emotions. Even Jesus felt emotions, right? He wept when
Yeah.
old dude died, right? So, um, you know, feeling your emotions and really having a time with God is a big thing, and then just surrounding yourself with that support group, kicking and
Yeah.
relaxing, so.
Yeah. And those are great things. And something else I recommend is the gift of therapy. So
Mm,
if you can find a good therapist or a counselor,
yeah.
especially one who's a Christian, because they'll
Oh, for sure.
understand like your worldview and how you
Right.
see things. It really helps because one of the things I've been realizing, like, I don't know why for some reason we've been duped into believing that disability and illness is one of those things that we gotta carry ourselves.
Mhm.
Even if we have support systems and whatnot, there are still points in which me personally, I'm like, I gotta carry this. And then God has to remind me, like, will you tap into what the people are giving you? Like, can you just like you say you feel alone? Well, I gave you a friend, call your friend. You
Right.
say you feel alone, call your mama, call your auntie. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
just like learning to let go of that pride, I call it disability related pride.
Mhm.
Because it is a real thing. It
Oh,
really
yeah,
is.
for sure. Like, I know with me, at least, I guess having that disability alone can sometimes make you feel like a burden to other people. So it's like, well, I'm already this, so, like, I don't need to pile on me more on them, you know what I mean? Um, and because it's like you're putting more on them that they gotta help you with, and more you're being more needy almost. But it's really a thing. It's like you have needs, you have
Yeah.
personal needs, and despite the fact that you might have physical needs too, you have mental needs too. So,
Say that.
I mean, it's something that's hard to do. Like you said, the disability related pride, it's a real thing. But just learning to, have the right people around you, first of all, that are going to be there for you no matter what. And two, just, having the vulnerability and the openness to share with them what you're going through and have those conversations and help out a lot. So,
Yeah, that's real talk. Something one of my mentors says, he says, we gotta help people, like we gotta allow people to love us. And
right.
like when it comes to disability related pride, that can be difficult sometimes because, you know, it goes back to that feeling like, oh man, I feel like a burden because I need this thing yet again. And sometimes, like, even with something like chronic illness, my symptoms do not go away. They just
Mm,
vary in intensity and frequency. And that means when somebody's like, hey, how are you doing today? Or how are you feeling today? By the time they ask me that so many days in a row, I'm just going to tell you I'm fine because I feel like you get tired of hearing me telling you how I'm really feeling.
right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm also learning, like, to recognize the people in my life that I can just be honest repeatedly and not have to put up a front and say I'm fine.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a hard thing to do, but it's something that we got to grow in because we can't carry it on our own. We got to
Yeah.
give it to God, but we also got community too. So,
Preach. All right. I got one last pertinent question to ask you.
all right.
What are one or two things that you wish um, or you would like to see changed in terms of the way that people view people with disabilities?
Um, hmm. I guess first of all, and I think we might have briefly spoke about this before the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, but just, you know, not making assumptions about them based on uh, what you think they're able to do, or, you know, don't. I guess in my mind, like I've always kind of had this like utilitarian type of mindset where if you don't produce anything, you can't be productive, then you ain't worth anything, right?
Hold
And
up, hold up, hold up, hold up. Sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but you
no,
just
that's
stepped
cool.
on my toes. You just stepped on my toes.
uh,
Because I deal with that too. Like,
yeah,
if I'm bed bound and homebound today and I wasn't able to move a finger, then that means I wasn't productive. But I'm learning
right,
that's a lie.
right. And and also, you know, on your point that your definition of productivity is kind of, you know, like the world's definition of productivity versus, like, you can
Mm-hmm.
have your own version of productivity. Like, to me, productivity is, you know, fellowshipping with your people, right? Having
Mm-hmm.
good conversations, like faith-based conversations, right? Helping people with what they're
Mm-hmm.
going through, like that's productive. That doesn't mean you always have to be sitting here on the computer 24/7 doing something all the time, you know, like writing paper, you know, I don't know what else, you know, whatever you do, but just it's, you know, it's just that perspective. But on your question, I would say that, you know, just don't make any assumptions. Treat us, you know, like we're just somebody else, and it's just an old person, but we just have different needs than somebody else, right? It's
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard people say, you know, like I'm fine with people using the term disabled, but I've heard people say like, you know, it's not really disabled; it's just differently able, right? And that's just a
Yeah.
more, you know, different term, but it's kind of true too, because like we might struggle in one area, but we're gonna be really good at something else, right? It's
Yeah.
I think from people, I think I heard like your senses, like your sight, your hearing, your taste, or whatever. If one goes
Mm-hmm.
out, the other's enhanced, right? So think
Mm-hmm.
about the fact that, oh, I don't have this ability, but what abilities do I really excel in? You know what I mean?
You better preach. I hear you on that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that part about disabled, because I don't know if anybody who knows me, like when I refer to the whole area of disability, I always say people who have a disability or people with disabilities,
Mm,
because um like there's a time, like when it comes to government assistance,
mm,
disability related programs, there's a time and a place for certain time terminologies. And
mm,
I try not to get too hung up on words, because sometimes if we get hung up on words, then we lose sight of the thing that needs to be addressed in the first place,
right.
but I say people with disabilities or people who have a disability, because I am so aware of the various people I've met who are so gifted in whatever God has given them, but people will negate all of that and they just assume because it's not presented in, a normal, quote unquote normal fashion, then
Mm,
it's not valuable. Like there are people on the autism spectrum who communicate through technology.
mm,
I would be deeply, deeply wrong to assume that because they don't answer me or respond to me in the typical verbal fashion, that they don't have anything to contribute,
right.
and you talked about this earlier, like how the waiter at the restaurant talked to your parents instead of talking to you, assuming
Mm,
that you couldn't talk because you were
right.
in your power chair. And
Mm,
I've had people like talk to me like I couldn't hear because they saw me with my cane. Yes, I have a cane. We'll talk about
mm,
that in future episodes. My cane, or I'm wearing my sunglasses, or I tell them that I'm visually impaired, or I'm looking at my phone like that. They feel the need to raise the volume of their voice. I'm like, ain't nothing wrong with my ears, child. God gave me a double portion of hearing to compensate
right.
for what I can't see.
Mm, yeah.
Man, you've been dropping nuggets and bars this whole time. Like I knew you was gonna come with it. I knew you were, but
Yeah.
I didn't know you was gonna come stepping on my toes.
I appreciate it. I had to pray before this. Is every time we do something like this, I get all up in my mind like, oh crap, what you gonna ask? I'm gonna I'm gonna blank out. I'm gonna freeze up. So I definitely think that prayer helped. So
I get that because I pray before every episode. I pray after every episode. I pray before because like I'm human and I'm not perfect. Like I may or may not say something wrong. I may buffer, like I told you, because of
right.
chronic migraine disorder. And like I really need his grace and his spirit to do what I do. And just the wisdom to allow myself to learn and retain that knowledge despite some of my limitations.
Right.
With that being said, it's the final question of the evening, and that is what or who in your life has helped you to become better and not bitter?
Huh. Well, I can't really say just one person. You know, we've already talked about, you know, first of all, having that purpose in Christ. That's one big thing. But the people who really instilled that in me started off with my parents. You know,
Mm,
and
mm, mm, mm.
my family too, right? My whole family really. Just having those people to have conversations with, and having my parents who would not let me, like, they would not, if I want to be like, oh, I can't do this, they'd be like, yeah, you can. Just go figure out a different way to do it, right? And so they always, you know, push me to, you know, not let it, not let that be an excuse, right? And still go out there and do the things I want to do. And then just instilling that faith in me. But also my group of friends, like I said earlier, like, you know, you can have family all day long, and that's when it boils down to it. That's all you got. But I do have friends that are so close that I would consider them family, and you know, it's just really nice to have those people because you know that they know you fully for who you are, and they accept you for who you are rather than looking at you from the disability spectrum. I mean, from the disability perspective. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so they know who you are and they accept you as you are, and y'all have, you know, great times together, spend time together, have laughs, you know, have personal talks, you know, go on your trips. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out with my friends and we've just been crazy, acting crazy up in public, you know, going to eat, going to the movies, whatever. You know, it's a blast being able to have that because it's like a sense of normalcy in a way, you know. It's like
Yes.
it just kind of lets you enjoy the things that everybody else gets to. So it's really nice having that. So I can't really pinpoint it on one person, but I definitely started with my parents and my family, and my friends have definitely helped along the way, as well as, you know, people in the church. Met many people at the church who are just great influencers in my faith, and just really able to have those conversations, kind of like what we're having now. So
That's awesome. I think that's a beautiful thing. And when I ask that question, I don't have any expectations. You can name 100 people. You can name 0 people.
right,
But it's always cool to hear people's responses and to see people light up when they talk about who or whatever has helped them
hmm
in their journey. I can definitely attest to the value and the beauty of having good friends, good family, and
hmm
um, just people who might not get it right all the time, but they're trying,
right,
which really counts. That goes a long way than not trying and all those wonderful, not so wonderful things.
right, for sure.
So, with that being said, fam, tell everybody where they can find you, what you're up to, all those wonderful things.
All right. So where you can find me, I'm on social. You know, my username should be in my name if y'all can see it, but if y'all can't, we can possibly put it in the chat or something. I don't know, but
Yeah,
uh,
what's your username?
it is TU
Mm-hmm.
underscore PAPI
Mm-hmm.
underscore LISIADO.
LISIAD.
Oh, yeah. And that's my Instagram if you want to find me there. That's the one I'm most active on. I have Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat too, but you know, hit me up there first if you want that rest. But yeah, that's where I'm at, and so I can connect with me there, follow me, I'll follow back. So
Wow, that's dope. Thank you, fam, for just sharing your story, being willing to talk about just ways we can do better as a society with people with disabilities at the bare minimum. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and all those wonderful things. I look forward to seeing you in whatever God has you doing, whether it's law or whatever trajectory He takes you on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me be on here and having this podcast, because it's definitely useful to the people who are out there who want to learn more but don't know how to ask. So
Yeah.
there's definitely some very valuable insight that you have from your experiences and from the experiences of people you interview. So I really do appreciate that.
No problem, bro. I appreciate your flowers. I appreciate your kind
Yeah,
words.
take your flowers. Take your flowers.
I'm working on it. You know I struggle with that.
Oh, no, I know. Same way.
All right, y'all. It has been a great time. Thank you for all of y'all who showed up and showed out in the comment sections on the live. If you are watching on the replay, I appreciate your time and attention to this conversation. And I pray that it blessed you in some way, shape, or form. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, don't forget to live each day with the aim of becoming better and not bitter. God bless.